firm believer of trying to take examples that really exemplify and bring a particular issue to light, that really gives us in a short period of time a good understanding. And the ice industry is a great one. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the ice industries, but back in the 1850s, if anyone's from the Massachusetts area, someone came up with a brilliant idea. The brilliant idea was to take ice from the lakes and harvest it, right? And they started doing that and created an incredible industry that went from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast, and this ice was being shipped everywhere around the world, including China. Now, how it got there, and it was still frozen, for the heck of me, I wouldn't be able to explain that, right? But they were doing this, and it was a thriving industry. So from 1850 to 1900, it was an incredible industry. Then in 1900, someone came up with an idea and said, you know what? Let's build ice factories in the major cities. Why rely on, lakes, and why rely on Mother Nature for cold? We can do this year-round. And they created an ice factories. And then you had the Iceman deliver ice to your home. You had an ice box at home. They created a whole industry. And from 1900 to 1927, it was a wonderful, thriving industry. As a matter of fact, in 1922, the 9th largest investment in business in the United States was into ice factories. So it was a thriving business. What happened in 1927? Well, we had somebody come up and invent GE home refrigeration. That kind of eclipsed this particular, industry of the ice factories. And what ended up happening is you're seeing in a 77-year timetable, moving from ice harvesting, natural ice harvesting, to factory-produced ice to home refrigeration, and 3 major shifts in the business. And here's the punchline. The leaders in ice harvesting never made it to the factory production. The leaders in factory production never made the transition to home refrigeration. If you think about what Tom was talking about today, right? How we're wired, what we look at and stuff, is those changes are very, very hard, and they're very hard in businesses. And it's not only unique to the ice industry. If you look at, the other changes that have occurred, right? Here's a question for you. What is the average lifespan of a Fortune 500 company? Is it 25 years, 40 years, 60 years, 75, or 100? Anybody want to take a guess? How many of you think it's 25 years? Raise your hand. Okay, we got a few of you. How many of you think it's 40 years? A little bit more. How about 60? Okay. How about 75? How about 100? How about who's sleeping? Because not everyone raised their hand. It's actually 40 years. And if you go back a little bit deeper, there was a really interesting study that was done. It says of the original Forbes 100 in 1917, right, 61 companies ceased to exist by 1987. Right? And you can do the same thing with the S&P. The point here is those companies that don't adopt, and if you don't really innovate and you don't build a culture of changing, you're at risk. Right? And it's going to happen over and over again. And I love Darwin. Darwin's got it right. It said it's not the strongest of the species that survives nor the most intelligent, but the one that's most responsive to change. So one of the things that I think is a real important life lesson here for all of us is, number one, you have to develop an attitude for personal lifelong change. You have to adopt. My wife is very averse to adopting any new technology, and I keep telling her, you can't avoid Facebook, you can't avoid Twitter, you can't avoid, new operating systems, you can't be running a telephone that doesn't have a smartphone on it to do your email and everything else. And I've got her kicking and screaming, but she's doing it. Now she's going, you know what, this is pretty cool. I like this. I can get in touch. Now she's a BBM monster, right? She keeps sending me BBMs. I go, I can't talk to you, I'm busy, right? But it's this whole thing about adopting. And then the second component on it, and I'm going back one, the second component on it, besides the lifelong learning, for those of you that operate a company, you got to develop a culture that is accepting of change, and you got to reward those people that are doing the change. I'll give you one very, very simple example. In our company, how we roll out new technology innovations, you know who we give them to? Anybody want to take a guess? We give them to our Gen Yers, our young Cisco talented kids that we say to them, hey, we got this cool thing we want you to play with. Would you do it? And they go, yeah. And they're already doing it already. Right? Very, very important to get that thought out. But you got to build a culture. So let's talk about technology. I'm going to speed it up because I got a lot to cover. Let's start off with one of the very simple concepts is, right, technology has a profound impact on business. I think we all know that. And when you look at the different industries that are out there, let me go back one more. Hold on. When you look at all the industries that are out there, and I think Tom highlighted a bit in the music industry, but it's going now with digital video recorders. It's happened with a lot of the things with YouTube. I think the newspapers are undergoing a phenomenal amount of change, right? And having this concept of adapting to all this change is very important. So let's move on to the tablet as one of the examples. How many of you are familiar with the tablet? How many of you have ordered a tablet? Anybody in the audience have ordered a tablet? Okay, I've got one. So now let me explain to you what I think it is. In Wired magazine, there's a great article. And for this month, as a matter of fact, on the tablet. The tablet is the beginning of a revolution that's going to change how we absorb information. It's going to change our whole concept and notion, right, of how we interface to a device, right? It doesn't have a keyboard on it. I think it's very the experience on it is very, very important. At CES, every single keynote had something to do with the tablet, right? And this is going to be really interesting. Now, if you're a magazine or a company, what do? Do you sit back and go like, I'm not going to do anything? No, you got to take some action. So what I want to do is I want to highlight to you what Sports Illustrated is doing, and it'll give you a real clear vision of how our experience is going to be in consuming media moving forward, starting as soon as April 4th.
Hello, my name is Terry McDonald. I'm the editor of Sports Illustrated, and here's your new issue. We hope you like the cover. Let's get a look inside. Okay, here are the latest scores and news stories, or the contents of the issue. Here's what's in the scorecard section, and an interesting take on the Broncos. Maybe you just want to see the baseball content. Fine. You can rearrange the order to read SI any way you want, or go with the editor's version. First, take a good look at the leading off photos. We're very proud of these. They're all exclusive to SI every week. Then move on to what we're calling the flip view of the entire magazine. Then maybe stop and take a closer look at the cover story. And many more photos from the weekend games. In this case, all the best action from the SEC. Next, you might want to skip back to the World Series. Find something to send out to your Facebook friends or your own archive. Easy enough. To really focus on this article, you can go to the text view. The advertising can also be more dynamic.
And I'm going to add a few more coals. I like to add the lump charcoal at this point.
Okay, time to see what's happening with your teams today. Eagles aren't doing too bad, but how about your fantasy team? Better rearrange your lineup closer to the next game. And here's something else we're working on. If you like the SI swimsuit issue, ask yourself, what if it came to life? And what if you want to play a game while you're watching your favorite team? Match what you think will happen against what actually happens. We're working on that too.